This is the Dueling Piano Players Podcast, episode 17.
You are listening to the #1 rated Dueling Piano Players Podcast with your hosts, Joel Randolph and Johnny K. Joel and Johnny invite you to join them online at duelingpianoschool.com and get the edge in the dueling piano world. And now, here are your hosts, Joel Randolph and Johnny K.
Welcome to the Dueling Piano Players Podcast from duelingpianoschool.com, where we help you get the edge in the dueling piano world. My name is Johnny K.
This is Rock and Roll Joel Randolph.
How's it going, Rock and Roll Joel?
Hey, not a thing, man. Great times in North Carolina this weekend, Johnny. I got to go play a private gig right down on the water in Wilmington. Beautiful part of the world. This was a awesome wedding. I was eating prime rib and that was filet and shrimp and grits.
Wow.
Yeah,
All
good
that
money
from the
too.
gig, huh?
Yeah, I like those
Wow,
jobs.
that's a
We only
good
played
gig.
for a couple hours. I think we did about an hour and a half worth of music. Good money. I like those.
Man, I want to get some of those gigs. I've had some in the past, and I'm hoping to book a few more over the summer. You know, summer is wedding season, so
For our listeners, if you're in the North Carolina area, especially coming around Christmas time, I'm going to be having a lot of parties. So if you are familiar with the methods that we show here at duelingpianoschool.com, maybe you're a candidate to go play some of those shows with me. It's hard for me to pull somebody off one of my club rosters to go do a private gig. So if there are people in the area that can do those private shows with me, you need to be getting in touch. And if you can't do those shows with me, you need to sign up for duelingpianoschool.com. Learn the 6 steps to becoming a dueling piano master ninja.
hey, speaking of which, we got to say hi to the new guys that have signed up with us. We're glad you're here. Welcome, new guys.
Hi, new guys.
And a good friend of mine, Ty Cheney, is also hooked up with us. He wrote us a nice little article about how to become an expert at writing and performing bits. So, hi, Ty. Thanks for joining us, buddy.
I've heard his name in circles forever. I've never personally met him, but I'm so glad. I read the article. Fantastic article. Good stuff that needed to be said in there.
Yeah, Ty's a pro. Ty's one of the best, man. I tell you what, he's the kind of guy you want to have on your team. And I've known Ty for a very long time, played with him in different situations. Yeah, he's a good guy to have around, man. He's a good guy to have your back.
He's the kind of guy that'll keep bail money set aside for you.
Yes, and as well as the address to the local gentleman's club. So, hey, let's get at it. Let's talk about what we're talking about today.
Well, yeah. From reading that article, and those of you listening, go read that article. Because last week, Johnny, we talked about bits versus songs. You know, and Ty had something to say about bits there that's good. And bits are what seem to be the feedback from our listeners and the people reading in our classroom discussions and stuff, that they want some help with bits. And for somebody coming up in the dueling piano world, that is really a landmark moment when you start doing bits. And I think, Johnny, that with Ty's article and with what we were talking about, I think we should help somebody understand what it means to develop their own show, how to put their own personality into a show.
Yeah, absolutely. Drink. So there are 3 major steps or concepts, I guess, for developing your own show. And the first thing that we're going to look at is songs. You need to have songs.
Right. And another thing after that is, once you've got those songs, you need to know how to get the crowd interact with them, because after all, that's what dueling pianos is.
And then we're going to really dive in to developing your own show, helping you, just kind of see who you are and develop the kind of character that goes along with developing your show. So let's talk about songs, Joel.
All right.
I'd say the first thing you need to have in your songs is, there's 50 songs. I think you need, that's probably the magic number when you're starting out, 50 songs, right?
That's about what it's going to take to cover a three hours worth of on-stage time. And of course, that depends on how much you add to or cut out of a song. But that's
it's a good starting point to have to shoot for a number of how many songs you want to learn. If you don't know any songs yet, or
right.
if you only know a few songs, this is a good number to start out with. And actually, in Module 3, we give you a list of very popular, tried and true, they always work songs that everybody knows. And
how we kind of developed that list, Johnny, is when I would get we've started aggressively training new members at our company, and specifically me. And when we get some people that come in, I treat them, we want to focus as if they've never played any gigs before, that this is their first gig. And if they're somebody from a band or from something else, that information will come into play. That experience will certainly help them out. But to start out, wipe the slate clean. So I hand them that list of 50 songs and say, how many of these have you already played? How many of these could you, do you know all the words to? And we start there. And then after that, we look at songs that, maybe you're real familiar with from that list and see how far that gets you. And a lot of times, if it's somebody that already plays and sings, they're going to get pretty close to that 50 mark just from looking at that list and then working a little bit using the concepts we teach in modules 1 and 2. They can throw together a song list of 50 tunes pretty quickly. If not, but that's a good benchmark for you to go for.
Sure. I know when I first started, I'd played in a lot of different bands and a lot of different situations, and having done karaoke and everything else, there's a lot of songs that you probably already know that you don't even know, or songs that you're at least familiar with. And so when you take a look at this first list of 50 songs, you can start kind of going down and putting check marks next to the ones that you either know or that you either need to focus on, and whatever's left over, you've got plenty of time to learn.
Well, and if you've been working on our modules too, it shouldn't take you really that long to learn. When you get to a certain point, you could pretty much play most of those 50 songs without ever having practiced it before.
Yeah, for sure. So I think one of the other keys in learning these songs, though, is, and you don't have to stop at 50. If you've been around for a couple of years and you say, well, I've already got 150 songs, well, that's good. Make sure you go back and really know those songs and that you really do a good job of them, and choose songs that fit you, that fit your personality, that fit your talents, and that fit the kind of show that you are trying to develop. So songs that you know, songs that you're familiar with, good place to start, and then pick songs that are going to fit you.
And by my songs that fit you, let me give an example of kind of what we're talking about. There was a guy that used to work at one of the clubs where I played, and sadly doesn't anymore. And it was mostly because of bad decisions by picking songs that didn't fit him. Excellent musician, been in the gig for a long time, and just a wonderful person. He's a great guy though, and but just insisted on singing AC/DC every night. And while he was hitting the notes, it sounded terrible. It was terrible. And I could see that he was saying, I don't have enough rock and roll tunes to fit this audience tonight. And so he would play that song because it was one that he knew. So it wasn't that he was just doing something stupid, but I think he needed to man up a little bit and say, boy, I just am not good at that song. I need to think of something else.
And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact,
no,
that's one of the biggest things that may hold somebody back as far as learning other songs, is that they just think that they're that they don't want to stick their tail in between their legs, so to speak, and run away. Sometimes you do got to man up, and sometimes you got to take a look at yourself and go, look, what's really going to work for me? I had to do that in the last 6 months with a couple of songs.
Well, and now that you mention it, he could have played the AC/DC song down like most people do. He was nailing it in the original key. And a lot of guys tune that one down and do it anyway, and the song goes over. But then again, he didn't need to. We had two guys on stage already that could just bang that stuff out. There was no reason for him to be playing that song and doing a bad version of it at all. So that song didn't really fit him.
Right. So let's move on to crowd interaction, and let's talk about what crowd interaction really is. Well, to define crowd interaction, we're talking about singing and clapping.
Yeah, well, you pretty much look at what are we doing? We're singing songs, we're getting the crowd to interact. So building your show, you should have some songs and you should get the crowd to interact. There, done. See you next.
See you next week. Well, let's talk about what kind of crowd interaction we're doing. We're usually singing and clapping. We're always having people singing and clapping. So you got to have something that they're going to sing and clap to. And you got to know how to get them to sing and how to get them to clap, and developing your own method of doing
Yeah,
that.
I would say, Johnny, there are spontaneous singing and clapping and crowd interaction, and then there are aggressive, where the player actually would train the audience either over a period of time or even just right before the song goes. When we get to this part, you say or something.
Yep.
That the spontaneous being that they just do it. That you're just playing a good song. You don't have to tell people to sing Piano Man; they're gonna.
Right.
But you might have to teach them what to say on Lucille.
Yeah.
And if you don't know that bit, get with your entertainment director or call one of us or send us an email. We can teach that to you. That's a real good bit to have, but that's something that you need to aggressively train your audience to do. And you'll find that on some of those bits like that, haven't you seen this, Johnny, that once the audience is trained and they know that place and they love it, you start the thing and they just finish it for you because they look forward to that and they know what it is and they want to hear it. And when you give it to them, boy, they just jump on it.
Yeah, the first time you go through My Ding-a-Ling, you can teach it to them, and then the rest of the song, they're right on it, and they're really into it. It doesn't take much to get them going, but you do have to kind of educate them a little bit. You have to train your audience, and then after a while, as the night progresses, you don't have to train them anymore. I mean, that's kind of how the dueling piano concept was developed anyway. Well, hey, we're going to clap our hands, or hey, everybody sing here, or hey, everybody clap your hands, or hey, everybody sing, and all of a sudden, the rest of the night, people are just jumping in and singing every song. And that's the way you want it. You want them to be singing along, but you do have to do a little bit of training. So your crowd interaction, the things that you're doing with the crowd to train them and to get them going, and then to let them know that it's okay to sing and that you don't have to train them anymore, that all comes out of developing how you handle your crowd and how you are on stage interacting with your crowd. So that's a part of your show that you definitely need to develop.
Yep, and with those tricks, you can develop your own personal stage character. If you've talked about or listened to some of our other podcasts where we talk about knowing your place in the show, that doesn't mean necessarily the hierarchy. That means, am I the comedian? Am I the straight guy? Am I the douchebag? I stole it from you. But yeah, and as you're developing your own personality up there, you can look at old bits that are tried and true, that are just dueling piano standards, and you can look at developing some new bits, which is convenient that we got that article up there from Ty. You can look at and learn, have some ideas. Man, doing an old bit, Johnny, you can remember way back, it's same for me when you started, that, I don't even let my trainees talk much until they can get their 50 songs underneath them, till they got that song list down. And then as they're moving into building their own show of the crowd interaction, I will teach them how to do, say, Lucille, or even something simple like Piano Man, and how to deliver that bit so they know how to deliver a song and how to make it work. Because a lot of times, even knowing what to say, it still doesn't work out for you. Have you found that to be true?
All the time. Actually, it made me think of something about old bits versus new bits. You definitely want to be able to try out some old bits. Like you watch somebody do something 10 times, and that's how you get your feet wet. But something Ty wrote in his article, how awesome would it be to be able to go into any dueling piano bar in the country, slay the crowd with an original bit that works, because it's funny that it's never been seen before. He also talks about at any given moment throughout the country, that same night, there could be hundreds of other guys singing the exact same bit at the exact same time. That's a good way to get your feet wet, is trying out some of these old bits like the Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weenies and Let's Get Drunk and Screw and all that. But I think the evolution of dueling pianos and for developing your own show is going to call for you to be a little creative, to be able to come up with your own stuff.
Right.
And it's all about how you focus on it. It's not necessarily get up there and try it and let it suck. You got to try something over and over and over again before it's actually going to work right. And you need to know not to just sit there and beat it to death on stage until they start laughing at you, because they're never going to laugh until you absolutely iron out all the little details.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about having your head in the game. And if you are trying to develop, well, even when you're learning some of the old bits that somebody has taught you how to do, you need to be paying attention. When that guy does the bit, everybody laughs or everybody dances or whatever. And when I do it, they don't. You, first of all, need to be aware that it's not working. And then secondly, you need to be looking into why that is. That's why we teach you those old bits, is to develop your skill on making the audience laugh or clap or sing or whatever it is that you're trying to do at that point, so that when you go to make your own new bit, you've got something to shoot for. You know how it's supposed to go.
You got a structure or a foundation on how a bit works now, and now you know how it works, and now you know the pieces of it. So that's all a part of how you're going to interact with your crowd and develop your onstage skills.
Yeah, you've really got to have your head in the game when you're developing that stuff to know if it's working or not. So you know if you need to dump the bit or improve on it.
Now let's talk about your show.
Why we got to talk about my show?
No, not your show, Joel. Your show, the listener, whoever's listening to this right now. Well, the whole point of this was to develop your own show. Your own personal dueling piano show. Now, it's not just, you've got your songs, you've got your songs that fit you. You've trained your audience. You know how to interact with the crowd in a specific way that fits your style. So how do you develop the rest of your show? Well, we can talk about comedy versus entertainment.
Right.
Like you were saying before. Well, you got the funny guy, you got the straight guy, one guy's the douchebag, et cetera, et cetera.
You bring up an important point there, comedy versus entertainment. And we have to remember, folks, that our whole purpose is to entertain. And the reason that strikes such a chord with me, Johnny, is that I know so many players that when they get to the point where they have their own show, and we're working on now their own song list, and we're working on building their crowd interaction, they see us veterans up there telling jokes, and the audience laughs, and they're having a great time. They want to be part of that. So they get up there and ha 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 and be Mr. Funny Guy. And that doesn't happen overnight. That's a long worked out skill of how to deliver. Comedians, actors, musicians, all that stuff is shined and polished over messing it up a bunch of times. And you don't have to necessarily be a funny guy. If you are, fantastic. But don't feel like you have to be. You need to be entertaining. There are lots of other skills that we teach. Your entertainment director will know. You can watch other players. We'll teach them right here at duelingpianoschool.com. Ways to be entertaining that don't necessarily involve being a bad comedian.
Sure, when I was a rookie, we all had to be a little bit funny. There was some industry standard jokes, if you will. But I would say, take this three-way example. We had you, me, and Mike Capo. And remember, Mike Capo was one of the most talented guys we've ever worked with. So at that point, you were the funny guy and the rock and roll guy. Mike was the awesome talent. Everybody just loved his playing ability, his singing ability, and his smirkiness once in a while. And I was kind of the punching bag trying to figure it out. And for some reason, it all worked out. And next came in our buddy Dave, who now became the punching bag. And then Tommy, who became the punching bag. And there was a series of evolution among the players of finding that character amongst ourselves. So the reason I'm using specific examples here is because everybody has a role. It's a team effort, and you can't have two funny guys. Well, I mean, you can if you're naturally funny, but your goal shouldn't be,
don't force it.
I'm going to be the comedian up there. Everybody's a comedian, but don't try to be a comedian if you're not already funny. Great. It takes a long time to develop that kind of thing, as you just said.
Well, and that's why that brings us into our next point, that you need to be yourself. You being funny, Johnny, is not the same thing as me being funny. And you being entertaining is not the same thing as me being entertaining. And while we both need to have that sense of humor for our show, we both need to be entertaining all night. It's not exactly the same things that are going to get us there. And I think it's important that as a player, I know, or you know, who you're dealing with and where you fit in there. There are lots of times, I can be the funny guy for sure, but there are lots of times where I'll play with another character. And the guy I'm thinking of, he's a real character. But that's, every song is a joke, and everything he does, Mick Jagger impersonations and Jerry Lee Lewis impersonations. And I just sit and play songs and say very little because there's no need to. And it's going to look like I'm trying too hard sitting across from this guy because it's just so natural from him. Now, he developed it. he's veteran 10 years in the game. So it wasn't the first day he did it like that. But clearly when he's on stage, he's the guy being the clown and I'll be the talent for that.
And he's being himself. I mean, that's how he knows that that's what he knows he's naturally good at, his strengths. He's focused on his strengths and he knows his weaknesses. And you know your weakness. If you try to be just as funny as him, you're just not going to be. So let him get the laughs and you get the applause. And together, you create a show. You create some kind of entertainment. Now, we were talking about knowing your role. So in that particular instance, you would know that your role was the talent and his role was the comedian, right?
And here's a prediction, and we'll check our podcast in September and see if my prediction has come true. But this particular guy I'm talking about is going to be covering at the club here. When I go to one of our other clubs down on the beach and run that whole circuit and see how things are going on the Gulf Coast, I'm anticipating that while this person is playing summer, when I get back, the other guys are going to be trying to pick up on his deal and be that flamboyant clown. And they're rookies. They do not have the skills to do it. And this is what I'm talking about. Just because you've seen somebody else do it and it works, that doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And don't think that just because you're doing it, everything is fine. You need to be paying attention. They don't like it when I do that. Or they really do like it when I do that. So then, you're on to something. Okay, I found a new part of my personality that I can work on. So we'll see what happens when I come back, if that.
Well, it probably will happen, but no knock to you guys. Just understand that it's just a stage that they're going through.
Oh man, that's what
You're right. The role that you don't want to play on stage, whether it's the comedian or the rock and roller or the talent or the cute one or the sweet one or however Backstreet Boy you want to go with it, just don't be the douchebag. The guy that pisses everybody off, the guy that's drunk the whole time, the guy that does not entertain a crowd. Don't be that guy, but do develop yourself into your own personality and be yourself, figure out who, don't try to lie to anybody.
In fairness, Johnny, in fairness, you're absolutely right. But I have seen a couple guys that is their personality, that they're the drunken mean guy. And I don't necessarily mean that they're even really drunk or really mean. There are some people that can pull that off and the audience laughs and, claps them on the back and sends up money. And then I've seen somebody come in and try to do that thing because they saw that guy do it. And it just, they were the douchebag.
And
they
that's the douchebag. The guy that pulled it off is not the douchebag. The guy that didn't pull it off, that's the douchebag.
Yeah. My advice is just try to not be that guy.
Don't work so hard.
I know it was one of the flying hey ho brothers. So you know who I mean.
Oh yeah.
I'm not going to say his name. But the older one came in watching one of the greats, and that guy would just come in smoking a cigarette and dress like crap and look like he'd been drinking for 2 days. Just fell off a train and rolled onto that was his personality. That was great. When the ho brother came in and did it, it was not great. He was a little prick and he was pissing everybody off.
Yeah, he wasn't. He hadn't been around long enough, and he hadn't had the gray hair to earn the right, I guess. Which I didn't see any problem with it at the time. But how old was I then? So
we were doing this thing, so it didn't matter.
Well, yeah, maybe. But what's funny though is that guy looked like he just woke up and just got off the train. I bet he probably did.
Oh no. No, he lived upstairs, so he just rolled down the steps.
Well, there you go. Okay, so developing your own show. Focus on your songs, your crowd interaction, and then focus on you. Be yourself. And don't be the douchebag. Be entertaining.
That's it.
And don't work so hard, you guys. And also, if you got an email from us today and there was a little bit of a typo, just try to move past it and giggle a little bit. It wasn't on purpose.
What kind of move should I get past it with?
Anyway.
Hey, this whole thing, Johnny, reminds me, I've been talking with some friends because as we mentioned earlier, we've been getting some communication in some of our forums and our emails about bits. And that seems to be a big focus, what we're talking about lately. I've gotten with some of my friends that I know who have written their own bits. And I don't want to, on our site anyway, I might in person if somebody wants to get in touch with me. But I don't want to teach any of the old tried and true bits on here. You can find them on YouTube probably, if you have an entertainment director at your club or even some other veteran players, they can help you learn some of those standard bits. Go about it that way. But what we are going to be offering here at duelingpianoschool.com is an opportunity for you to check out some original call downs and funny songs that some people have written that I know. And I've been in touch with them. They're going to allow us to offer them up here on our website to our premium members. So make sure you're looking for that kind of stuff, because when you need ideas, you can certainly email Johnny or I, or give us a call, whatever you need to do, and we'll help you with that. But we're going to have some exclusive content that you will be walking in somewhere and setting the show on fire, because it's the first time anybody's heard these songs.
And that's the kind of thing that, if we just post up the same old thing that everybody's been doing for the last 20 or 30 years, you're not going to get that edge. And we're looking at getting the edge in this. We're looking at talent development, developing you into the kind of player that's going to get you paid. That's going to get you that sense of fulfillment, that reward, and the money and everything that comes with it. It's all about getting that edge, and that's what we're here to help you with. And I don't really have anything else today.
That's it. I think that's a lot for people to think on.
Sure is. You got any questions? Get on those forums. And like we said before, talk about the kind of new songs that are working. And I usually check out iTunes and Billboard and stuff like that. But let's get something going in the podcast show ideas forum. Start writing down some examples of the new songs that you think are working and that you think are worth learning, and that are not just the typical fly-by-night song, because there's going to be a lot of those. But let us know what you think over at duelingpianoschool.com, and we'll see you next time. I'm Johnny K.
I'm Rock and Roll Joel Randolph.
Nice. We'll see you next time, everybody. Bye.
Easy, Modi.
You have been listening to the #1 rated Dueling Piano Players podcast. Join us now online at duelingpianoschool.com and get the edge in the dueling piano world.